Today we have something very special for you guys. We've got my buddy Ronnie here. How's it going, man?
Great, good to be here.
And Ronnie brought this 1974 Bronco, but Ronnie, this isn't a typical Bronco because there's no gas motor under this hood, is there?
That's right. It was a typical Bronco about 3 months ago, but this is our test mule for our EV conversion products that we're rolling out. We're excited to run the course. This vehicle was set up to where all the batteries are tucked up nice and high. It has mostly factory components, so we're still running the solid axles, the original transfer case, and we want to see how well it does on the course.
What was under the hood originally?
So originally it came with the 302 V8. For a while we had a fuel injected 302 and we were benchmarking it, getting some 0 to 60s and seeing how well it did. And then that drivetrain came out, went into another Bronco, and here we have this Hyper 9 motor. The battery pack is 37 kilowatt hours. It weighs very similar to the original weight, and it's all sitting right where the original engine was. We 3D printed some things to make sure that everything was safely enclosed and no one had any points where they could touch anything dangerous.
Right.
But our hope is that we've done all the fabrication, we have the model set up, so we can turn any vehicle, a Jeep, a Bronco, especially something with a similar drivetrain to this, we can now convert it within a matter of weeks rather than a matter of years.
Is this using the factory engine mounts to hold up the box?
It is.
That's cool.
Yep, and then the transmission is mounted to the Hyper 9 motor, which is underneath the battery box. We still have the 3-speed transmission. We still have the transfer case, the drive shaft, the axle. So although it sounds different and the torque comes on a little different, it feels really similar to factory.
Part of the idea of all this is that if you wanted to, you could still bring this back to a factory Bronco and put a gas motor back in it, right?
Absolutely, and in fact, we're going to test that. So here in a few months, we're going to pull this back out, go back to gas, and we're going to move this drivetrain over to another Bronco and see how quickly we can do it.
It's so interesting feeling this thing start to move pretty much silently.
Off. I had a sway bar on for about a week.
I'm assuming to any kind of suspension lift here?
Yeah, we have a 3.5-inch lift.
Yeah.
And we have a 1-inch body lift to be able to clear the battery pack, actually.
Nice. Yeah, so that plus 31s, I mean, you know, back in the day, these were very capable off-roaders with 31s.
I don't know if I'm in low. There we go.
Nice.
Yeah, articulation wise and with the solid axles, it's pretty hard to make. When you lift a tire in a classic Bronco, you're usually a little scared because you know
yeah.
You're pretty far into it.
Cool too, I noticed that up some of the obstacles you're able to use the clutch.
So yeah,
to slip it a little bit.
They do make peak power instantly, but sometimes you can get a little bit of rotor lock where it's just the motor's not spinning enough to build up enough electromagnetic field to really push you. So with the manual, if that ever happens, you can just push in the clutch and away you go. You can get a little bit of speed back. It still shifts in and out of gear just like an old Bronco. If you don't use the G case,
you gotta work it a little bit. Yeah, so it's kind of funny that a lot of times people say that, you know, there's no nuance or no character to driving something with an electric powertrain, but you do have to kind of learn the characteristics of this powertrain. It's like a lot of people with their enthusiast gas-powered vehicles, where it's happier under certain circumstances versus others.
One thing you'll find about Bronco drivers, like a lot of the other classes of wheelers, they like to go slow over everything.
Yeah.
But I think it's because the Broncos came with a V8. Like everyone just bombed. That's why they're all destroyed.
Guys go fast. Yeah.
Yeah. The fast is necessary isn't really applicable in the Broncos.
So how do you guys go around setting up the power steering? Because obviously you don't have a hydraulic power steering set up running off the motor.
We don't in this one. We can. And if you're doing really serious off-roading, I actually recommend that.
Yeah. So this right now is a manual setup?
No, we actually have a motor. It's repurposed out of an electric vehicle, and it senses as you're trying to turn, and it applies help, and you can adjust it too. So if you're on the highway, you can turn it down and it'll be more stable, and if you're off-roading or in a parking lot, you can turn it up.
Well, we breezed all of that, and part of our back course is right now being maintained by David, but we can do at least a couple features back there. Do you want to try it?
Let's hit what we can.
Sweet. So you're still using the clutch at all? I mean, if you go between gears, or not really?
Not much. So we do use the clutch to change gears. When you're starting out, there's enough power in the motor that you can just, it feels very much like an automatic transmission. The motor revs out to about 8,000 RPM. So for efficiency, getting it up into a direct gear helps you on the highway.
So did you guys have to change the final drive ratio to make it happy? I mean, I would assume that you've had to play around with that a little bit.
We did. We played around several times. With the 33-inch tires, we're running 513 gears right now.
Okay.
It seems very happy at that ratio. If you were running like stock tires and you had the drivetrain that was originally behind the straight six, that configuration would also be just about perfect.
And what kind of speed can you get up to in each gear roundabout?
Yeah, what's interesting is you have to remind yourself to short shift, because the factory clutch doesn't love shifting at 8,000 RPM. The engineers didn't design that, but it gets up there really quick. So first gear, you can get it all the way up to around 40 miles an hour.
Okay.
But you probably want to shift it closer to 20 so that you can get into the next gear a little more smoothly.
And what's your best indication of when to shift? I mean, do you have a tack set up here on your display, or can you kind of hear it?
Yeah, we have a tack. The motor's sending a signal, so our RPM gauge actually does work. Let me pop it in neutral.
Yeah, I guess you can rev it up, which you can't really do with most EVs.
So you can see right there we're at around 4,000 RPM.
Oh, and you can hear it a little bit too, so I'm sure even without glancing down at the tack, you're able to kind of feel when it's time to shift.
Absolutely. This motor's quite powerful for the size. It does that by having basically different power bands with the way the magnets are set up. And so you'll actually feel certain parts where it feels very happy and it picks up, and you can shift the gears, and it's an experience learning how to make the electric motor happy and shift it at the right time. But it saves a lot of that character. It's not like a typical EV coming out now where it's just made to be basically as user-friendly and carefree as possible.
What kind of range are you getting from this?
We're getting around 80 to 100 miles. Aerodynamics wasn't really a thing back when this was made, so it's very happy around town. The brake regen works very well because of the weight of the vehicle. On the highway, it drops quite significantly, but on the trail, we're getting about 2.7 miles per kilowatt hour, which surprised us.
Yeah, that's actually really impressive, because we've done some wheeling of electric vehicles on trails, and typically it's a pretty high energy use case. It tends to draw a lot of power to off-road with an electric motor, but 2.7 miles per kilowatt hour is impressive. That's a lot more than I would have expected as well.
Yeah, I think part of that is that we have the electric motor mated straight to that manual. On a lot of systems, it's a lot more complex, where they're trying to split. Like on the 4xe, it's part of the transmission. There's a lot of things turning, whereas here it's actually very simple.
Now we're pulling into a little bit of the back course. Right here is Dirty D's. It's actually not quite as muddy as it's been for a lot of the spring, which is good because it has gotten gnarly on parts of this course, and that's the reason that David's having to go in and maintain a lot of it.
I'm going to be honest, this is my first time in the mud. I live in the desert.
Yeah. Which is funny too, because I mean, being Colorado based, typically coming out here to wheel, there's not really any mud to drive through, but it's something about our property here. There just seems to be a lot of mud.
Well, we breezed through that okay, so I'm feeling hopeful.
Right. Got this soft, steep hill, that's no problem at all. It seems like, too, I mean, the gearing, once this is in low range like it is now, is a huge help. This might be short wheelbase enough, and the turning radius, like you talked about with the coils, we might be able to make it in one sweep, but a lot of times we'll have to back up a little bit and turn it into a 3-point.
Okay, we'll see.
Yeah.
Put it to the test.
So how is the engine braking on this when you let off and you're locked into gear going downhill like we are now?
It's tunable. So I've been playing around with it, trying to find a happy medium where it doesn't lock up your wheels when you're trying to just make a simple stop. But for off-roading, it's really nice because like right here you can see I'm not even on the brake hardly, and it's just creeping along. And on the display you can see how much power you're generating back while you're doing it.
Also pretty impressive with the wheelbase on this. We hooked around that in one turn, which, you know, a lot of side-by-sides can do, but not a lot of passenger cars.
Yeah, the wheelbase on these Broncos is incredible.
Now we've got what we call a slip and slide, which is mostly just a soft kind of steep hill, and a lot of times this is an issue for longer vehicles when it comes to breakover. But again, I mean, we've got such a short wheelbase here. I don't see us having any problem whatsoever. Oh yeah.
Oop. Ran out of torque slightly.
Yeah.
Feels like it's taking off the line slow.
See it? Little momentum. Oh yeah.
Come on, baby. It's not. Dang it. I think so. Part of this too is I have the power limited to not break things. So
Yeah.
there's some tuning that can be done. I'm gonna try it in high range. I know it seems weird, but I feel like I'm getting off the line too slow. Oh, now we're just burning out. All right.
I would have figured that this would be a relatively lightweight vehicle, but from the sound of it, even though after the EV conversion, it's not that much heavier, if heavier at all, it sounds like this is actually a fairly heavy vehicle.
Yeah, first generation Broncos are very heavy. The earlier productions one had smaller axles and they were a bit lighter, but when we put this one on the scale, when it was a gas engine, it was weighing 4,600 pounds with the doors in the top, so significantly heavier than a Jeep. Interestingly, the people at the scales were shocked because it came in exactly the same weight on the rear tire as the front.
Interesting.
2,300 and 2,300.
Huh. People have to give you funny looks, right?
Oh yeah, we've joked about that. We have public charge with it. It's pretty funny.
Well, what kind of comments do you get from people?
It's funny when you see someone pull up with another electric vehicle and they're about to tell you to move, and you're like, "Hey, I'm charging just the same as you."
And is your charge percentage indicator on that screen as well?
Yeah, it's all here on. This is a Thunderstruck battery management system, so it's all up here on this center screen. You can see your estimated range. You can see the voltage of each cell group. And you can drill down if there's any kind of problem. You can see that in the cell group diagram.
Typically, how long does it take you to charge from however far down you drain it to full, maybe 20%?
I have 6 kilowatt charging, so there's different ways we can spec that, but I'm charging in about 6 hours.
Okay, so overnight.
It's perfect for overnight. Even if you're out late and you have to get up early, this thing's going to be fully topped off.
If you want to get the components necessary to do quicker charging, is that an expensive upgrade or?
It's not expensive to up your level 2 charging. We're pulling about the max of what a 50 amp circuit can in your house.
Right.
Unfortunately, right now, there's not a lot of fast charging options on the market for EV conversions. We're told that's coming toward the end of this year, and we'll offer it as soon as we can. The market's coming along quickly. We're seeing a lot of companies step up and produce motors for the market, different inverters and controllers. What we're not seeing come on as quickly is shops willing to step in and build the battery boxes and do the hard work to get it into the vehicle. So that's the market that we're trying to fill. We're also working on selling kits that are ready to go, where we've done all the programming for you. We've assembled the battery box and made sure it'll fit. It'll show up on a pallet, and by just following a few diagrams, you could have your own EV conversion done in your garage.
Now we have our last little mud pit, which actually luckily is not looking quite as disgusting as it has for most of the spring, because we're not really on mud terrain tires here.
No, yeah. When I originally bought these wheels, I was living near the beach in Oregon.
Yeah.
And this was a beach cruiser, but...
And two, I mean, you guys are based in New Mexico, so it's it's not very muddy out there, is it?
Ooh, boy. We're flinging. Yeah, these BF Goodrich all-trains, they pack up notoriously bad.
Yeah, the KO2s have never been much of a mud tire.
You can see they're pretty packed in at the moment. But I think we can wiggle out of this.
Oh yeah. Nice.
Okay, we did it.
A little mud on the Bronco.
What it was made for. Yeah, your next guy might have a little easier time. These wide tires kind of carve a good path.
All right, well, thanks again, Ronnie, for bringing out your Bronco. It's always cool to see something vintage out here on the course. So we have a lot of people bring up their built-up brand new off-roaders, but yeah, something a little classic kind of takes us back.
Well, thanks for having us. If you have a vintage 4x4 or something that's right up our alley, we'd be happy to. A lot of the ones we're doing, we're finding have been sitting in a field or in a garage for 20 years. It's time to get that thing back out and into this century.
Yeah, and next time you guys are in Colorado, definitely bring it back, and we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, we'll bring something bigger next time.